Hey there, folks. It's Reem again. We're back with more Conquest content. I've had a busy summer, so I've had a couple of weeks off, but I'm excited to get back into it, talking about mainline infantry in the 100 Kingdoms, the two different options, and different ways to use them, and how to bring them into your lists. So, first off, what defines mainline infantry, at least for me? For me, you want them to be mainstay. You want them there to unlock other options in your army. You don't want to have to, jump through hoops to get them in your army. They got to be really good screeners. A couple different ways to screen. You can, take a lot of space ahead of your army and provide room for your army to move around, or you can just be a unit that's a good bulwark for other units to hide behind. So screening in one of those two ways. So we're looking at, I'm thinking probably defense 2, defense 3, or defense 1 with shield. Evasion 2, possibly evasion 1 would work if you're doing well in the other categories. But you want them to be cheap, and as part of kind of the cheap unit or cheap aspect of them, you're probably not going to get a lot of offense out of them. If you start paying a lot, that's when you start for the unit. That's when you start getting additional offensive features for your unit. So we're probably looking at units that are at least, I'd say at least Clash 2. If you're Clash 1, then you're just kind of chaffed, especially if you're like Clash 1, Defense 1, something like that. So Clash 2 or Clash 3, 4 or 5 attacks. If you're getting less attacks than that, you're probably falling under chaff category, or maybe falling into like a dual purpose range shooter role. So like Imperial Rangers don't make the cut here just because they're a little bit low on the defense aspect, and they also offensively aren't very good in melee, and their whole fact that they're a volley unit makes them more of a pure screener versus line infantry. And then also, finally, you don't want to make sure that your line infantry isn't specialized or forced to buy an upgrade to specialize, aka you want pretty keyword light. Some of the cheaper keywords are probably what you're looking for, like shield, maybe support, maybe vanguard, stuff like that. You're not looking for like flawless strikes or deadly blades or cleave, items like that. And that kind of leads us into our example here of what doesn't meet the threshold of Crusaders. So Crusaders are medium, they are mainstay. However, they're 140 points, kind of expensive, getting outside the cheap range, and they are 40 points per additional stand. You're also heavily encouraged to make them veteran, just to the way the Feast unit ability works. If you want their divine sanction for the plus 2 inches of movement, you want to make them veteran, or you have to pay another upgrade cost on a character to give them that. You're also, by paying for that veteran, getting flawless strikes, so you're paying, those extra points to get these fancy keywords. And flawless strikes isn't especially good right now. It sets defense to 0, which is all right, but there's a lot of units that have evasion to fall back on. Like almost all the monsters in the game have evasion. Like the whole Nord faction, you're going to see the Volva as the warlord's going to have evasion. There's just a lot of matchups where the flawless strikes really won't matter much. It might effectively be cleave 1 at best. And then also a problem with the Crusaders is at their price point, they're kind of specialized as a character bunker, mainly for the Feast Priest, because they don't have access to the men-at-arms. So if you really want to build a bunker out of your Priest, and you think the militia aren't survivable enough, then you maybe go with Crusaders, but you're just paying a lot. As you can see, if you're paying for those 5 stands of Crusaders and giving them veteran, it's 220 points, where Men-at-Arms is only 185 points. That's including buying the officer for Hardened 1 on the Men-at-Arms. I guess technically you'd still have to buy the veteran for them, so it's 195. But still it's like a 25-30 point difference between the two, and the only benefit you're really getting between those two blocks is +1 resolve base stat, between Crusaders and Men-at-Arms, and Flawless Strikes. So that's why I don't think Crusaders make the cut. They get a little bit too expensive, a little bit too fancy. They might have a place as character bunker, only kind of heavy infantry almost for the priest. So let's go over our first option, first candidate that I think can make the cut here for mainline infantry. We have the Humble Militia. What makes them really great is they're really great light screens, decent movement, can get up the board, turn 1 11 inches, and then turn 2 when your mediums are coming on, they can be 22 inches up the board, or throwing them that far ahead, they're probably just going to get wiped off the board, but you want them to be able to take, 13, 14 inches up, make space for your army to come in behind them, threaten to just stand on some points to prevent people from scoring. There's a couple of interesting character bunker ideas that you can go with militia. I guess I should explain character bunkers. Character bunkers are just where you have the regiment essentially be a health pool to make sure your character stays alive, or not only a health pool, but the damage output is going to come mainly from the characters, or what you want out of the. You don't really care what the regiment is, it's just you care about the character, and you want to make sure the character doesn't die. So you want a pool of health and decent stats to make sure it just doesn't get taken off the board and you lose like your priest, especially if you're Theist. Losing your priest early before you can use your supremacy would be really terrible. Other option here for just like more of the offensive utility would be Errant of the Order of the Shield. Since the militia is Theist, you can actually give them the Elysian fragment, and all of a sudden you got this like 6 stands of militia plus the Order of the Errant with Cleave 3. Surprising amount of offense. It's not great. It's only 4 attacks at Clash 3 if you're inspired, but if you're big enough with 100 Kingdoms, you're going to get that Inspire for free if you're 5 stands or more, so you don't even need to Inspire in some cases. You'll just have it for free if you have enough stands remaining. And they do have support 3 if you give them Veteran, which you'll get in the Order of the Errant of the Shield, or you can buy easily for the 5 points. Making them so that a big brick of them actually will get a decent volume attacks out. If you're hitting on 3s and you throw out like 20 dice, you're going to hit 10 times. If you get some rerolls in there, if you're got a Noble Lord in range and you're part feudal, you'll get some rerolls from that as well. You can spike 12, 14 hits at Cleave 3 with militia. Can do a surprising amount of damage. Another great thing about militia and what makes them really, really good is just how cheap they are. At 100 points, it can really help pad out your list to give you a higher activation count. And they benefit from any sub-faction, realistically. They come as feudal theists, but they work well with nobles, with their rerolls. The theists like them just because Blessed is a good ability to give them with the spells for a turn. Extra movement is fine. And under Imperial, Vanguard's fine if you really want to move them up early. Free Reform is fine. Orders, where you're just getting Flurry on the command stand, not as great, but if you time it right and you get the Hardened +1, all of a sudden Militia, Defense 2, Hardened 1 can kind of come in clutch against those Cleave 1 units. So Militia, pretty solid, 100 points, 30 additional per stand. I do want to say, I did highlight here that you can score with 4 stands. However, to get 4 stands of Militia, you're playing 130 points. So unless you are taking the Militia because you want them to be further up the board, take that space on round 1, it's probably just better to save some points and take the Men-at-Arms. You can even get the Men-at-Arms, MSU, and Officer cheaper than 4 stands of Militia. It does offer more wounds to your pool, and if you're just looking for more wounds in your army, because wounds are one of those things in this game that you can actually, and this game is very powerful because a lot of stuff you're rolling for, but wounds and movement are, guaranteed stats. I mean, movement can be modified a little bit, but it's fairly consistent. So, not needing to, average out what dice are going to be and think about, expected curves of how things could go. If you're just like, I want 150 wounds in my list just because, I'm going to make my opponent roll dice and roll to kill me, that's one way to go as well. So the other option here is the Men-at-Arms, coming in at 10 more points from the Militia. A lot of the same stats: movement, clash, attacks, wounds, resolve, defense 2 instead of 1, so they get up to 3 with their shield, and they get support 2 if they become veterans, so they can be bricked pretty well, or character bunkered as well. They once again provide good screening. They can come on early, they can come on late to fill in gaps. Great solid character bunkers. You can give them the officer. I think if you are building a character bunker, that's when you spend the 15 points for the hardened 1, just because you want to make sure that character stays alive, and spending 15 points over like 5 stands is less than it is 3 points per stand. It's a pretty cheap upgrade to get hardened 1, just to make sure you're saving on 3s from like AP1 attacks and cleave 1. They can score. The damage is pretty, like I said, funny enough, big bricks of Militia with their support 3 will actually get more attacks with the exact same attack profile than the group of Men-at-Arms. They're still pretty cheap, so they get that high activation count. If you're running just an MSU of Men-at-Arms, I don't think you need to pay for the officer. Just keep them really cheap at 110. They also benefit from any sub-faction really well. They enjoy the movement. They enjoy Blessed from Thieves. They enjoy the extra movement and the reforms from Imperials. They really like the rerolls from the Noble Lords, rerolling 6s on attack and defense. And from the orders, the hardened 1, if you give them the officer, is kind of wasted. The extra attacks is fine for the 1 turn. And then the flurry on the command stand is kind of whatever. It can help get a little bit more damage than your opponent might expect out of an MSU. And also, I use the Men-at-Arms a lot as just a good restricted slot unlock. So a lot of times with Noble Lords, if I want like double longbows or something, or a longbow and Household Knights, and I have the Foot Noble Lord, I'll take a brick of Household Guard or a brick of Men-at-Arms, and then my second regiment will just be an MSU at Men-at-Arms, and then I'll have those 2 restricted slots unlocked, so I can get the double longbows or the longbows and the squires or whatever restricted unit I want. So I just want to go in detail about Men-at-Arms bunker examples, just to really show what I think is probably one of the best things about 100 Kingdoms is this bunker that you can build. These bunkers you can build with Men-at-Arms, because Men-at-Arms can go with every infantry-based character except the priest. And I think most of the time, if your plan is you want the character to survive or do damage, and you're looking for the most cost-effective way to get them some decent wounds that need to be chewed through, I think it's probably going to be the Men-at-Arms. Going with Household Guard and stuff, you end up spending, extra 100 points on upgrades and just the extra cost of the unit, where if the goal is just to keep the character alive, you end up with much of the same defensive stats just from the Men-at-Arms. So, first example here, I think, is one of the best versions you can do of character bunker in 100 Kingdoms in general, is having a Noble Lord. So a Noble Lord is in this bunker, and you have 5 stands of Men-at-Arms. That's just how I like to run it. You can run it with 4, you can run it with 6. It's kind of like how many instances of stands can you afford to put in your list after you're happy with the rest of your list to get to that 2,000 points. But 5 stands of Men-at-Arms where an officer is going to be 185 points. They're going to have defense 3 with the shield keyword, hardened 1. They're going to be rerolling defense rolls of 6 and clash values of 6. The Noble Lord itself, this is why we're bunkering. The Noble Lord is going to have Eccentric fighting style, so he's going to have full rerolls. Candle burn, so he's going to make your opponent reroll all their saves. Graceful combatant to give +2 attacks, and weapon master to get cleave 1. That means the noble lord is going to be rolling 8 attacks, rerolling all misses, and the opponent rerolls all saves. So the noble lord kind of turns into an anime character, and it's not too uncommon for you to get 8 hits out of 8 attacks. And then depending, if the cleave matters or not, like you could be doing. I've had the noble lord do like 12 wounds pretty consistently. They'll do like 6 or 7 actual wounds through on a defense 2 base unit, and make them save on ones, and then they fail a bunch of resolve as well. With the Feast sub faction, the bunker gets Bless for 1 round, probably, from the priest casting Bless on the entire army. The Noble Lord will pick up Indomitable 1, so you're getting even more tanky. So you just got this big, tanky, bricky block of 20 wounds with surprisingly good defense. That just needs to be chewed through, gets an extra resolve bonus as well, just due to size, so you're saving up 4s to begin with for your resolve. It's really, really good, and it's pretty cheap. You end up with 130 points for the Lord and 185 points for the Men-at-Arms. It's just over 300 points. You get this very fighty brick. And the brick doesn't really change with other characters. You can lose that reroll of 6s on Clash and Defense is the main problem. Although if you keep them, if you're paired up with nobles or the feudal as your dynastic ally, as long as the noble lord's within 8 inches, you still get that bonus. So, with these, you get the same kind of deal. You actually get an additional +1 to your Indomitable, so your Indomitable 2 if you're in a Crusading Noble Lord as a character that's being bunkered or bricked with. In the Imperials, you're going to get the Vanguard 4, free reform. Don't really need the veteran. You can save the points if the officer's in there, but that's an example where the officer, he's not a character unit. He's not going to be in the front line needing to cast spells like a priest potentially. So a cheaper, Imperial Ranger unit's probably better for him. You can throw the mage in there. The mage generally, though, prefers crossbows, but if you really want to make sure your mage sticks around, you can put them in the brick, although I've had problems with duels, because the chapter mage absolutely dies to anything that offers a duel. So if you have to deny twice, it is very bad. And then orders, you get that 1 round of hardened and +1 attack, flare in the command stand, and it's pretty good with Order of the Errant of the Shield if you want to just swap those characters out. So, put the Crusading Noble Lord, the Order of the Errant Shield, the Noble Lord, any of those more fighty characters, put them in with the brick to just, get these 20 wounds that have to be chewed through, and the character is just dishing out damage. So, new section, because I have covered other units before, but I haven't really covered, how many should you own? Well, here's my opinion on this. For the militia, I think 1 box is a good starting point. You have 3 militia, it's 100 points to just kind of fill out a unit, be like, hey, I want extra activation, I want a little bit of screening, it's a light to roll, if I want to guarantee that other lights are coming in, it adds 1 more die to the pool. 2 couldn't hurt if you're thinking of bunkering them with a priest, because you do 6 stands in the priest, and that actually comes out to be, I think, 190 points. Yes, which is only 5 points more than the Men-at-Arms 5 stands. So you're getting 4 more wounds, but quite a bit less defense. But it's an okay brick with the priest. And then I think you'll probably just pick them up if you end up buying value boxes. Like Older First Blood boxes will randomly have like 4 militia in them or 8 militia in them. Starter boxes have random amounts of militia. You're just likely to pick them up as you go. So if you're just starting, you bought some boxes, for whatever reason you think you need more militia, I think 6 stands is probably the end goal. 3 to 6 stands. If you really, really love them, I could see you going to 9 stands to have like a bunker and an MSU running around. It depends, if you want 2 units of 4 running around because you're going to try and score with them. There's also some value of, if you get 3 boxes because you want 8 stands of militia, you can build that 9th stand as a bowman, and then you could get another box to make as bowman. So there's options to have. I think 1 box though is probably good if I was going to. My house burned down. I had to start a new collection. I'd probably get 1 box of militia just to have them on the field, or as a tool in the toolbox to throw into a list. Men at Arms, I think 2 boxes is probably where you want to start because it gives you the option to build a bunker unit for any of those characters that I mentioned, or just 2 MSUs, so 2 groups of 3 running around. Good activations in the list to have. The new sculpts are really, really great. I put together my first box the other week as Crusaders, but I got to look over all the men-at-arm bits. The men-at-arm bits look really cool. Definitely much improved over the original kit. And then the extra bits that are in that box work pretty good. I have some kit bashing ideas to do with extra helmets and stuff I have left over from making the Crusaders from the men-at-arms side. But if I made the men-at-arms, I'm sure I could find things to do with the spare, like Crusader heads and the Crusader blunt weapons. The old sculpts are starting to show their age, but they're pretty cheap at $20 a box. Probably won't be around long. They're probably going to sell out. But if you're looking to get bunch cheap, or even just mix it up, like the new sculpts are great, but if you want a little bit different stances, sprinkle an old guy in, or an old model into a stand, do 3 new ones, 1 old one, kind of spread them out across your army, could work. End goal, I would say, is probably 12 to 15 stands. I could see used quite commonly unless you're doing like an all cavalry list or a very heavy orders list. And that will just allow for 2 character bunkers of 5-ish stands and an MSU. Not too unreasonable to do. Probably not going to do more than 15 stands. 18 stands I think would probably be the max. But I think 12, 15 you could hit quite common. But 2 is a good spot to start. See if you like that character bunker. See if you just like them as MSUs. If you want to play like low activation counts and you want like big expensive blocks of elite units, you're probably not going to need more than a box or 2 of men-at-arms. But that is my thoughts on mainline infantry in 100 Kingdoms. I'll have a TTS tournament coming up soon, so I'm going to have a list video up for that next week sometime. Honestly, debating between 100 Kingdoms or playing some Sorcerer Kings. So we'll see how that turns out. You all take care until then.